Napolitano and the Department of Homeland Security is facing 2 lawsuits because Janet Napolitano is being accused of creating a hostile work environment. Now, this is very interesting because oftentimes when we hear about hostile work environments, it's because male employers will do something to harass female employees, and then we hear about those lawsuits. It's very common. However, in this case, the people who filed the lawsuit were men who claimed that the hostile work environment included sexually charged games intended to humiliate and intimidate the male employees. Now, it brings up a very interesting issue because whenever a guy complains about a hostile work environment, he's immediately pawned off as weak. And is that acceptable?
Totally unacceptable.
No, I don't know if you're being serious, right? That was a very interesting tone you had there. But it's interesting to see that as more and more women gain positions of power in certain workplaces, all of a sudden the dynamic is changing, right? And for a long time people thought, oh, only men can sexually harass women. It's not as common when it happens to men, but it happens on both sides.
Look, let's keep it real. Okay, so is it unacceptable? Of course it's unacceptable. Of course you shouldn't do it, right? And and if a guy complains about it, he's got all the right in the world to complain about it, etc. But like, as a guy, I think like if I had a really hot boss who just kept wearing like kind of tight clothing, etc., and kept coming on to me when I was single and making me uncomfortable by cornering me in the office, that might not be so bad, right? Now, of course, not all the bosses are hot. I know, right? But no, seriously, it's not about actually coming on to you, because that's way crossing the line as it is anyway. But if they're kidding around about sex and it creates a hostile work environment, bad Cenk is going to have his double standard. But you couldn't take a joke about sex?
How about this,
and you're a dude?
How about this?
You see what I'm saying?
I get what your argument is, but I don't think you're putting yourself in their shoes. So let's say, for instance, you're not an employer, right? You're an employee, and you are a lower level employee, and you're looking to get promoted. And the place is run by women, okay? All of the upper management consists of women. And you hear them openly talking about like, oh, did you see Chris? Did you see Chris Matthews? So much better looking than Cenk, right? We're going to give Chris Matthews the raise. We're going to give him the promotion. And they don't say it explicitly, but they imply it. I mean,
seriously, look, if they're using it as a form of promotion, etc., and they're discriminating against you because they're like, Cenk, he's a little rotund, so we got an issue, so we're not going to promote him. Yeah, of course that sucks, right? But if they're, playing ass slap football and they're like, then I was having sex with that guy and then I was deriding him or whatever, and I happen to hear that, I'd be like, so what? Have at it,
What if it's an everyday thing and it's distracting, though?
Oh, come on. How distracting could it be? Oh, then I was doing this to him, and then he did it to me this way. I mean, okay.
That's not distracting? I can't think of anything that's more distracting than that.
If that's your boss and she wants to tell you about it, I mean, it could be weird. It could be a little creepy, whatever. But it's not something that I'd, take to management and be like, I'm really uncomfortable. This kind of frank sex talk has made me really verklempt. Okay, so now if you do, I get it, and of course you have to apply the same standards to men and women. I'm not going to hate on you for it. I'm just going to go, really? That's all. I'm allowed to say that, aren't I?
But I feel like at TYT we live in a bubble. Like there's sex talk constantly. There's like, we look at porn for research, like that kind of stuff. Like every single day. But at a different workplace, like you're doing accounting. Right, you're doing accounting, you're doing your numbers, you're crunching those numbers up.
So, okay, last thing on this. Look, I know, you're crunching the numbers up. Are you kidding me? The sex talk's going to be 1,000,000 times better. You have any idea how bored you are crunching numbers? Yeah. Like, is somebody, you're talking about orgies? Listen, I'm busy crunching numbers. Okay, that sentence has never been said. Okay, and so let's say you and Irina at the office are talking about the Olympic divers, and you're like, whoa, look at that package. I'd like to dive into that. Okay, I'd be like, yeah, so what? I mean, if one of the guys, Iderola, comes by and says, I felt really uncomfortable about that, like, dude, man up. Okay, how ripe for a lawsuit am I?
What if the women are making comments about your appearance, right? Like, oh, your ass is looking tight in those jeans today.
Yeah.
Like, is that acceptable? Is a guy considered weak if he complains about that to management? Yeah.
Did I say that out loud? I didn't say anything, did I? Oh, come on. I, look, Les, keep it real, okay? Women have a rightful concern when somebody says, oh, you got a tight ass, etc. There's issues of sexual assault, la, 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 uncomfortable. All those things are absolutely real. If a woman says to a guy, you got a tight ass, 99.5% of the time, the guy's going to be like, yes! Do you see what I'm saying? I've never had a woman compliment my looks where I thought, I'm feeling a little uncomfortable.
In the footage, Uyger becomes visibly giddy and gives the camera a thumbs up when Kasparian states that, quote, TYT lives in a bubble because they talk about sex constantly and, quote, look at porn for research. Quote, let's say you and I are in the office talking about Olympic drivers and you're like, whoa, look at the package. I'd like to dive into that. I would be like, so what if one of the guys comes by and says, I feel really uncomfortable about that? I would be like, dude, man up, Uyger says. How ripe for a lawsuit am I? Kasparian states that Kasparian then asks if I would hold the same position if he would hold the same position if the comments were about the male coworker's appearance, saying, is a guy considered weak if he complains about that to you? In response, Uyger gave an exaggerated head nod and affirmative. In 2016, the men's soccer team at Harvard was suspended over a, quote, scouting report, which rated the attractiveness of members of the female team and listed potential sexual positions for each player. She seems relatively simple and probably inexpensive sexually, so I decided missionary would be her preferred position, end quote. One example from the dossier read. The women listed in the public document went on to pen an op-ed for their student newspaper, the Harvard Crimson, describing their embarrassment, disgust, and pain we feel as a result of the report by their male peers. Uyger, who now supports the #MeToo movement, sided with the male players at the time. I will play the clip for you now. Unfortunately, the video sound is screwed up, so the clip will not play. So I'll read the quotes. Quote, young college guys rating the appearance of young college women. Shocking, breaking news alert. Uyger said mockingly, quote, totally not guilty in my opinion. Kasparian, visibly upset, pushed back against her employer and compared the dossier to the, quote, grabber by the you-know-what comments by President Donald Trump, which the host has long railed against. Trump was also speaking of consensual encounters, yet Uyger demands that this is somehow different. Quote, that's different, he says. The soccer team didn't sexually assault anyone. Kasparian kept pushing, growing more upset with his excusal of the players, demanding to know of his attitude, if his attitude would be the same if men at TYT had written something similar about her. Uyger continued to claim that it is different since the men just go to the same school and do not work together. Quote, meant to make a joke amongst his friends. This is actual locker room talk, Uyger hypocritically states, after a year of attacking Trump for the same. They're just kids. Uyger's opinion on the issue may have been colored by the fact that he has a history of rating women's appearances himself. In another archive from his former Young Turk website, where he was pitching himself as a television personality, he wrote, quote, I started telling people how I pick up chicks, or how I don't, and how I rate women when I first see them. It's a 5-tier system based purely on how hot they are, and what I think of current events, and all the other crazy things going on in the world. Then I become a phenomenon. I became the Turk. Furthering the hypocrisy of him railing about Trump's comments on how women will often be inclined to sleep with men who are celebrities, and his support of the Me Too movement. An archive of his website revealed the TYT host admitting to tricking women, quote, tricking women into sleeping with him because he works in television. Discussing Air Force Captain Joseph Belly, pleading guilty to fraternization and other charges that stem after an affair with an established woman in 2002, Uyger wrote that, yeah, he used his position of power. Don't we all in some way? I tell girls all the time about my cool job at a TV station in hopes that it will trick them into sleeping with me. Guys, this is just the tip of the iceberg. We're going to talk about his racism in my next video. Thanks for watching, guys.